Well, the show is called Turning Point. So let's just start with Mr. Gavaskar and talk about that turning point. Mr. Gavaskar, firstly, thank you so much for joining us. I want to talk about Virat Kohli's LBW decision. Do you think that was the turning point of the match?
No, I think the turning point was much earlier when India was fielding and conceding the number of runs that they did in the last 4 overs. So instead of chasing something like a 275, India was suddenly chasing 300 plus. Now, anything over 300 is a psychological boost for the team that has put up the total, and they know that they have to bowl pretty poorly, or somebody from the opposition has to play an extraordinary innings to win the game. Because anything over 300 means straight away you're asking the team to score at more than 6 runs and over, which is more than a runner ball. And while that is done, that is accomplished in the T20 format, in the 50 overs format, it's not easy to do so.
Right, Mr. Gavaskar, talking about the bowlers, MS Dhoni in the post-match presentation spoke about that, and very interestingly, I don't want to read too much into it, so I'd rather just have you give us your opinion about what he's really said and put it in context. Mr. Gavaskar, I hope you could hear that, because he said, MS Dhoni has categorically said that the fast bowlers he had, they're more like swing bowlers, and I don't want to read too much into that, but what do you make of that?
Well, I think he's right. India doesn't have express fast bowlers, and Australia had one in Mitchell Johnson. James Faulkner and Clint McKay were pretty much like the speed that the Indians bowled. Maybe Faulkner was just a little bit quicker. But it wasn't Mitchell Johnson who really got the wickets, though he bowled a fiery first spell. I think it's not so much the bounce, and it's not so much the seaming situation. I think the length of the Indian bowlers has not been quite right, and we've been seeing this from the same bowlers for the last so many years. But every single time, well, not every single time, but most of the times, it's the batting that actually saves the Indians. It's the batting that wins the matches for the Indians.
Right.
So India has to look at why the bowlers keep bowling the length that where they get hammered.
I'll talk about Ishant Sharma in just a while, but going back to what Dhoni said about the fact that he has swing bowlers, not really fast bowlers. Do you think they got it wrong in dropping someone like an Umesh Yadav, who's clearly the fastest out of the lot?
Well, I think that is, even Umesh could have gone for plenty. So it's not that it's as long as he doesn't bowl the right length, every bowler is going to go for runs. So that's the thing. But if your team has scored 300 runs, and then the same Indian bowlers are bowling, they'll be bowling in a different way, for the simple reason the Australian batting will be under pressure. But when they are bowling first, in the last few overs, the last 5 or 8 or 10 overs, the batting power play, India concedes a lot of runs.
Very interestingly, you mentioned the bowling and you've hit the nail on the head, because even another legend like you, Wasim Akram, he says that in the long run, if Ishant Sharma goes back and plays first-class cricket based on his performances in that T20 versus Australia, where he gave away 52 runs in 4 overs for no wickets, and in this match he gave away 56 runs in 7 overs for just 1 wicket. He thinks that he should go back and play some domestic cricket, because that will help him in the long run. Do you agree with that?
Well, I think the more he bowls, the better he's going to be when he's playing an international game. That's a given, even for a batsman. The more he bats before he plays an international, it's going to be a big help. But I think it's, at the end of the day, it's the length. I keep saying the length. Try and bowl a length where the batsman is not able to get under it and hit you over the top. Now, if you keep on bowling the length where the batsmen are going to go, and at the pace that you have, which means that you're not really learning. And while the limited overs format is a little bit harsh on the bowlers, because the batsmen really throw their bats at just about everything, and the white ball doesn't move as much in the later overs, I think it is still an area where if you bowl cleverly, you will be able to restrict the runs and maybe even take wickets.
What was interesting was that MS Dhoni just spoke about the fact that he didn't have the right kind of bowlers for this particular kind of pitch. But he also spoke about the batsmen, and he kind of, if I could say that, lashed out more at them for the kind of shot selection that they... On an off chance, I don't understand why that happens. I mean, anyone can have a bad day, but when the captain comes down hard at his batsmen by saying that, what do you make of it, Mr. Gavaskar?
Well, to be honest, this is the first time I've heard Mahendra Singh Dhoni come out and say things about his teammates. Generally, when he has to say things which are not pleasant, he manages to say it without really causing the kind of sort of offense or people who sit up and take notice. But this time around, he's probably given vent to his feelings, and I think it's probably a message to everybody. So because if he's talked about his batsmen not doing well and the bowlers not doing well, it certainly is a message for everybody that they better pick their socks up.
Do you believe India were a tad bit complacent? Because MS Dhoni has made a very strong statement, as you just said, and he's given vent to his feelings. He doesn't want to lose to a side that doesn't even have a few of their first choice players. Australia, Michael Clarke is not there, David Warner is not there, Sean Marsh is not there, and George Bailey is a captain who is very well unknown, maybe very stout. But what do you make of the fact that this is a side that scored 200 against India in the T20? India chased that down, and now India maybe thinks that whatever they put on the board, we can chase it down.
Yes, there's a big difference between 200 and 300. And the format is also different. It's a 50 overs format. But again, I think what we've seen in these two matches is that the Australian batting is pretty good. 200 runs in a T20 game is a very, very good score. And for India to have chased it successfully also speaks very highly of India's batting. But then when looking to chase 300 plus, India's batting wasn't able to live up to the expectations. You could possibly say that because the Indian bowlers were carted round and 200 runs were taken in the T20, the 300 runs being conceded was expected.
Well, very quickly, Mr. Gavaskar, this is a long series. It will be a war of attrition. They need to win the series 5-3 to take the world #1 ranking from India. Do you see that happening?
Well, if they keep on batting the way they are, and if the Australian bowlers bowl the way they have, but it also depends on the kind of surfaces that they'll get. Maybe in Chandigarh they might get a surface which was similar to the one in Pune, but the other surfaces, Jaipur and Ranchi and Bhubaneswar and even Bangalore, I think will be surfaces which will suit the Indians more than it will suit the Australians.